Hi, welcome to Building SaaS with Python and Django. My name is Matt Lehman, and on this stream, we work on building Django apps. We're going to build an app or continue building an app. This is part 6 of a series to build a new SaaS application that is about journaling and sending emails to users and responding through web UIs and all that sort of stuff. We're going to walk you through the whole process. Every line of code for this project is streamed live. I don't do anything offline. Just so you can see the full experience of what it takes to build a SaaS product. SaaS is software as a service if you're not familiar with it. You are free to ask me anything about Python, Django, or web development. That's what I'm here for. And we're going to get back to the project. It's been a couple weeks since I've been streaming, so got to brush up on some stuff, but I think I remember roughly where we left off, and we'll get into this and work on some emails today. So the plan is to get through email sending. We might be hooking into SendGrid this evening. I'm not really sure. Maybe we'll just get as far as designing the email that we're needing to send for the service. As a reminder, this is a journaling service. It's a service that is intended to send journal prompts via email so that if you want to journal as a user, you would respond via those emails, and the system will receive those and store them all. And the cool part about it is that as you send your responses, every time you get a prompt for a new journal entry, it'll send you one of your old ones to remind you what happened in the past. This is a service that I have actually used with another vendor. I'm actually making a clone of a service, and it's worked well for me. I've done it for 7 years. I've been really happy with it, and I've just had some reliability problems with the current service I'm using. So I'm trying to offer a replacement and teach you all something at the same time. So that's what we're working on. John, welcome back. Good to see you. Sorry for my absence. Last week I was at a Python meetup, and the week prior to that I was not feeling well. So it's good to be back at the streaming stuff. So let's look at the code that we're working on, see where we are situated, and if we want that code to live in that spot or refactor some stuff, it'll make sense in a minute. So we were in the middle of sending emails to users. And like I said, this is the prompt email. This is the thing that will signal to a user of, hey, today is July 19th, 2023. How was your day? And the person, their job is just respond back, and will then store their response as their journal entry for the day. So this is the primary interface of this entire application, if you can believe it. A lot of the app will be in support of that, of how you're going to set up your account and like sign up and stuff. But that's frankly secondary to this primary route. So we need to make this email good. It needs to be appealing enough, but not over the top. It needs to be clear, concise. It has to be thought out in terms of how are we going to process the emails. I've had some thoughts on that that I'll talk through. And yeah, then we'll have to actually hook it up. So there's a part of this project that I've never done before. Just being fully transparent, I have done the sending of email out to people, but I have not used a service in terms of receiving and processing inbound email. That's the new aspect to me on this. So I know how to tell Django to send out. It's going to be fascinating when we get to the actual flip side of this email and how to process those and what that's going to mean. So there's some certain implications that I've been thinking through on these emails that'll be important for consistent processing of them. So let's set that aside though and look at the code, get to it, and see if we can get back to where we were. It's been so long that my machine restarted for other reasons. So let's get the NeoVim session going here and see if we can find the task. Oh gosh, it's not even showing up there. Do I have it staged? Wrong project, sorry. Well, where'd it go? Oh, it's a job. That's why I'm looking for tasks, but that's assuming celery. We're not doing celery. We're doing the Django extensions version of that, which is a job. So here we have our job. And you can see last time, this is how far we got out. So the idea behind this job is it's going to run every day, and it's going to send all of the emails that are going to be relevant. Right now we have a placeholder for just a generic send email call. I'm gonna my approach is gonna be for this is let's build the right email, let's build the right content, and then put it all in this job. And this job may not be the right home for this code, like logically. Um, it is logical in that it's the thing doing the sending, but I don't know that from a design point of view that I want it to live here versus a portion of the system that may know about emails, that may be able to do the right lookups and all that sort of stuff. We might want to separate those concerns over time. But I also don't want to over-engineer on this project. So I'm willing to use this as like we've got a hook for where to put stuff, and let's like flesh it out here. And then if we decide, you know what, it's looking a little gnarly, or it looks like this could be done better elsewhere, then we can refactor that code. So let's walk through this line by line, and I think it matches up with this issue that we're working on, issue number 4. And let's think about these things. I mentioned that there's some processing concerns that I have that are going to be important for particularly the subject line. It might be crucial. So here's my line of thinking with the emails. The whole point of the system is to send a journal entry once a day. But if you think about reliability aspects, there are things that could happen. Maybe my email service provider is having an outage, so this job runs, email service provider is down, and I don't notice until the next day. What happens? What should I should have sent out something for July 19th, but it's on July 20th. So what should the subject line be? How would we represent the 19th? So there's a possibility that we miss on the day that was sent, and so we need to factor that in. There's another aspect of this that I've been thinking about in terms of receiving on the other side. So I've been thinking like when a reply comes back in, the user has received a prompt and they reply for that date. What should we record in the app for what date that belonged to? There's a number of different points you could calculate against. I could perhaps, depending on what SendGrid provides, that's the email service provider we're going to use, I could look at the sent date of the prompt when that went out. So I can give you an example. My current journaling service is something where I don't respond every day. I kind of like batch them up and think about my week at a time and write a bunch of entries. So there's not a guarantee that the response from the user is going to come in on the day that it was sent. So we can't rely on the date that the user sent it, because an entry for the 19th today might come in on Saturday, a few days from now, which would be like, what is that, the 20th, 22nd? Am I getting that right? Yeah, I think so. So if it comes in on the 22nd, we don't want to record their response to go associate it with the 22nd. That would be wrong. But as I just mentioned, there might be a problem on the application side where it doesn't send it out. So if we are also trying to rely on the sent date from when the email got sent to the user, then what if I missed the 19th and the 20th is when the entries for the 19th were sent out? So there's a day later. So if I receive that date and do the processing on that, we would incorrectly associate something with the 20th when it was supposed to be to the 19th from the user's point of view. Sorry if this is a little confusing, but these are scenarios that we have to consider, different failure modes. All right, so that kind of rules out the date that the user responds, and it rules out the date that we sent. So what does that really leave? That's where my brain got to this subject line. I think the only way to be truly consistent is to record the date and somehow associate the date with the email in a material way. And there's a couple ways that I think that could happen. And it sort of depends on what SendGrid provides. So let's say, well, well, it may not even be relevant here. So there's one option that was in my head that maybe if I called SendGrid and sent an email, then they might give back a response that says, here's the ID of the email that we sent. And at that point, I could associate that ID with a date, and maybe when the reply comes in, the reply could look up the original sending email and correlate that with a date. That is quite a bit of assumptions there about the structure of that. Also, it ignores the SendMail Django API. If I did that, I would have to go through a very specific SendGrid API, perhaps, to get that additional metadata that I certainly wouldn't be getting by calling SendMail. The SendMail API from Django is just like, assumes you don't care anything about it, you just want to send a mail, go. That's how I interpret this. So that approach wouldn't work. The other approach I was thinking of is I could make this consistent by making the subject contain the date, and that I ignore when things are sent, I ignore when things are received, I parse the date in the subject. And that would have the benefit of being a very clear association with this was the date that was sent in the prompt. It's what it was intended for the 19th. It comes in and I find that it's for the 19th. I can associate that entry properly and everything is good. There is a downside to that approach. Hopefully it should be obvious, but in your email client, nothing is stopping you as a user from changing the subject line. So there's a possibility that the user responds and for whatever reason, they go up and mess with the subject line, and then that comes in as something else, or they pick a different date, and maybe they pick something way in the future or way in the past, or something like that. So there are these possibilities that things could be messed up by that if we consider that route. However, that feels like the most reliable route to me. That John, I'm looking at your question here. So would I have some sort of message pre and post hook for sending alerts? Could be an option for the user. Love if you said more on that, John. I don't quite see the connection you're making there. Maybe there's something there we can chat about a little deeper. Because remember, the sending of the emails is like really disconnected from when the user is going to respond with their email client. I don't know what a pre and post would mean, but maybe there's something there. So I think what I would do most likely is put the subject, put the date into the email in a consistent way. And it's a format that I will know the structure of. I will put it in probably a standard US-centric format. Sorry for those of you who don't like your month, day, year formulation of things. I think that's the way that not everybody in the world sees things. But that way I could parse it coming in and say like, well, I'm looking for a month and a day and a year, and I can look inside that subject string and find out what date was this for. And then I could do some validation on, I know that my service isn't going to go live until sometime this year. So if anybody changes the year to something less than 2023, I would reject it. If anybody picks something beyond 100 years from now, I would reject it. Like I can put some bounds on this to kind of protect myself, or not myself, but protect the code from getting really wacky data into the system. I don't think, I think back to my own usage of the service that I'm using. I have never once touched the subject line, but I'm trying to make a robust system. So that could be some downstream validation of like, let's give ourselves a to-do of making this. So I think what I want to do is make a nice subject line there. And now this is where we get into some like copywriting. And I don't mean in the sense of like copyright of who owns this. It's just like the difference between copyright like that versus copywriting like this. the writing copy, like as a marketer would, or that kind of thing. These messages are the product. Like it needs to be a pretty compelling subject. So what subject would I write? What is a good neutral prompt that doesn't creep me out? Like, no, I was thinking about some prompts. It's like, oh, I could write it this way, but it would be kind of creepy. Like, what's the, tell me about your day, that kind of stuff. Like that's like, whoa, yo, that's weird. Like somebody's read my email very directly. So we need to have an inviting message that prompts people to put about their day, that includes the date, and just feels natural. So let's think of what would be a good fit. There's also the whole subject of tense. Like, do I want to write a subject line that uses the past tense, kind of indicating, hey, this is intended to come after your day, and respond how it was. So like I could say, how was your day? That could be one way to think about this. So what are the core elements? And then we can once we get the core elements of the subject line in there, we'll use July 19th of 2023 as kind of the placeholder. Then we can back out and put a date in there, work backwards from that. So I'm wondering also if we can play up the journey inbox on this. So what if we said this, hard thinking of copywriting while you're streaming. It's July 19th, 2023 of your journey. The other thing is, like, I need this to fit in a reasonable, your subject line and your email needs to be clear. It needs to get the message across concisely before it gets trimmed by the actual email client. And I'm a Gmail user, so that's going to be my frame of reference. Some of them might even be shorter. So I'm going to type out something that feels maybe not great, but we'll see. So it's July 2019, 2023 of your journey. How was your day? Ugh, doesn't feel good. What do I not like about that? I think, why not just use the date? I think, you mean like a date format, like not spelled out, John? I mean, just like, I don't want it to feel too programmery. So to me, like when I'm looking at dates as a programmer, I want to see something like 2023-07-19. That's the thing that I want to parse most easily. But something about my brain says like, yuck, that's not how I want to read dates naturally. That's my own personal bias maybe, but Chat GPT, Michael, that's an interesting idea. Let's try it, Michael. Let's see how that goes. Oh man, I have an account, but I don't remember. OpenAI Chat GPT. That's the URL. It's like, yeah, okay. If I can log in. Oh, connection dropped on John apparently. Okay, I have to unlock my 1Password, so I'm gonna put on my secrets page for just a minute so that you can't see how many characters are on my master password. I don't think anybody would guess it from that, but you never know. I'll keep talking through that while I'm doing this. It shouldn't take more than a couple seconds of getting that going. And yeah, I guess it would also reveal all of my credentials. So let me get logged in to ChatGPT here. I'm just going through the login page, nothing to see. And then I will turn this back on. There we are. Okay. So we got ChatGPT. We're here. Got it. Great. So you can see I've been using, oh my word. I've been using it for Lua. I'm using it for a bunch of other stuff. Let's see. I like to be, I don't know why. I like to be polite to ChatGPT. I'm afraid of my robot overlords maybe, but or future robot overlords. So please create some subject lines for an email that include today's full date and prompt the recipient to respond about their day. All right, let's see what they got. Anything good here? Ugh, very stilted. How was your day? Share your day's highlights. We want to hear about your day. Keep going. Create 50 more variants. So while it's cranking through, we can read some of these. So I guess they're doing like a placeholder of here's just a bunch of different styles that we could use. So there is a way to like, I mentioned, I said, I don't want to say like, tell me about your day, where it's like very much you're responding to an individual person. That's kind of creepy. Like this is a service. But maybe there's something to say for the us. I don't know if that borders on like tell us about your day. If that is a little too weird. We won't have the recipient name. So we'll only have the email address. We need to riff on that. Reflecting on today. Oh, that's interesting. We care about your day. No, I don't. I want it to be just what you think. Share your thoughts. There's a lot of these. How did they treat you? No. Your day in review. Let's try it. Let's make it do another. Try again, but incorporate the notion of a journey of life being a journey. It is called Journey Inbox, after all, in the subject. See if it comes up with anything cool there. It may not, but we'll try it. Your day's summary. Day's recap. Oh, this is a good one. We need to include, yeah, that's good. I want to include, importantly, the day of the week. I forgot about that. It's a very key element of like, because I get these emails and then I do them later, but it's important to like, well, I kind of know generally how my, maybe you have a pattern to your week. I have a pattern in my week. I go to the gym typically Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then I do different kinds of activities Tuesday and Thursday, and my weekends are totally different. So if I see it's a Wednesday, it sets me in a very different frame of mind of like, how am I going to describe my day? Because I know kind of the first activities of my day. So that's good. That's a good thing that I was forgetting. Incorporate the day of week. Let's see what it came with the journey stuff. Your journey's journal. Oh my. So you're probably gonna be cheesy. Daily journey, embrace the journey, life's path. How about, what if we try this? It's Wednesday, July 19th. What if we simplify, was it? Like give it a shorter. How was it? It's, or today. Today is, I think I might get tired of seeing that in my, like, today is, because it won't always be this day. How about, what if we said on Wednesday, how did it go? There's another element of this, of a journal. Okay, let's think about the psychology of people here, maybe. A journal is not just about, I mean, it sometimes can be, but it's not just about an activity log. It's not a log book per se. It's kind of it is meant to be a place where you can describe your, like, thoughts and feelings too, potentially. So what if we reframe this and just said, how are you? It's kind of feeling interesting, because there's a different take that it repositions this to be about, like, your mental state, and then you can describe your activities, or but it sort of positions that to be a little bit more thoughtful and introspective. I don't know. So let's keep going through these. Let's prompt ChatGPT. Make the subjects be more of an introspective prompt. What did you discover? Okay, well, that's interesting. Oh man, share your day's inner thoughts. John, I don't know the allowable character length for the subject line, but I want to say it's pretty short, because so I have an email list and I use MailChimp, and MailChimp has a prompt for the subject line and it has like a counter, and for some reason I have like 55 in my head. Maybe that's wrong. But what happens is, with a lot of these clients, apparently, and again, my only real reference point is Gmail. I haven't used another email client in like decades. Is that after a certain point, they sort of cut off and get grayed out. So you have a very short amount of characters to get to the meat of what you're trying to say. So that's what makes this, like, how do you get something that has both the relevant data, which again is the day and date, but also gets right to the heart of, like, what are we trying to say? What if we said, it's this, how are you? It's kind of feeling pretty good. That's very short. I mean, as long as this would go, what's a long month? December. None of them are that long. And okay, here's another way we could do this. Here's the thought. There's a couple ways we could shorten this. One is if somebody's responding, like, do we really need to say the year? I mean, if you're paying for this service and you've got these things sitting in your inbox, you probably don't need to be told the year, right? I think with a combination of the inbound information, I probably have when it was received. So I'm going to be in roughly the same month. There's going to be some like annoyance on the December to January thing of like associating it with the right time. There's some boundary condition stuff. So that's that aspect. So that is one way we could shorten that. And then, in theory, we could also do abbreviations for all these bits. But every time it gets too tight, or it gets like too terse feeling, I think. But maybe you write out the date or the day, and then you keep a short date. How's that feeling? It's Wednesday, December 19th, or July 19th. Yeah, these 3-letter month ones are feeling pretty good. July 19th, how are you? I think that's pretty clear. I think pretty parsable without too much messing it up. I don't know. I don't like it. And this can serve as double duty. Check this out. So because we're using the apostrophe S, we avoid, okay, I guess we don't avoid it with the question, but I was going to say we avoid it is Wednesday or it was Wednesday. So the apostrophe kind of obscures that element. So you could either be very strict of like, I'm doing it every day, or you could be thinking like, oh, it was Wednesday. But then I guess you'd have to say, how were you? So I think I'm okay with R. I think I'm okay with present tense, because not only for the people that are going to be super diligent about doing it every day, good for them, but also as I'm reading it later, if I'm reading it later and it says something in the present tense, well, I knew it was something that I received a week ago potentially, so I'm not going to think any less of them if the prompt at the moment was in the present tense. Like, okay, that seems fine. So that's feeling pretty good. I think I'm going to stick with that for now. And you know what? Insanity check. I'm trying to think of what my actual service uses. Watch it be like identical almost. It is shockingly close to what I have. So maybe there's something in the back of my mind that was just thinking of this. The difference being with their question prompt is more about that activity log kind of perspective rather than how are you as a person. Theirs says, how was your day? So, okay, my own little twist to it. Otherwise, this portion was literally identical. It's Wednesday, July 19th. That was the same format. So maybe all roads lead to the same place if you try and keep it short and tight. Or maybe I just have such a strong bias towards that. This is what feels best to me. As I did say, this is a clone of another service. It was a good subject line. I'm going to keep it. The only other way I could do that is maybe like today's Wednesday. But then again, That one gets a little bit too temporal feeling. I could look at that later in the week and be like, oh, it's not today. And that might feel off. All right. So that's enough of that. We have to think about the sending. Like, how do we account for... I think the first version of this, we're going to do some optimistic thinking, where we're going to assume that we're going to send 100% correctly every day. And then in the future, we can update that to be a more robust logic of like, hey, we messed up this day. Let's go back and fill them out. That's going to happen, but I don't think for the MVP of this that really matters. John, your question about how about archival, I don't understand what that question means. So if you want me to give you clarity on that, I'm happy to try and do that, but I don't understand that comment as is. So I think for the time being that we can do this as essentially having a date in here of today. And we need to get that from Django's time zone features, because we want stuff to be UTC aware, I guess. So we can do, where is that? Shoot, Django from Django and core utils time zone. Yeah, here it is. From Django utils import time zone. And then we would say time zone dot oh, come on. There was one specifically for local. Is it local date? What does it say? Hold on. Convert an aware date time to a local time. Return. Only aware date times are allowed. When the value is omitted, it defaults to now. But this is, I think that docstring doesn't feel right. That is like copied from local time. What's going on? Let's call it, and then let's go to that definition. Save here, go to the definition. Because local time is about time zone, is about date times. Aware date time. And then I think this docstring's wrong. Convert an aware date time. Oh, okay. Converts a date time to a date. I see. And assumes that now, if you didn't yet. You were thinking about saving. Yeah, you're right, John. I do think that the mail sender is going to give us some times to work with. So we'll be able to check, and I will have to put in some condition checking for December to January. But yeah, good call. Like, there's probably some smarter ways to do this consistently. All right, so we've got a date time here. Do we have I think we started a test for this. Test jobs. Yeah, here we go. So we want to start on the subject. I don't remember if it's subject or if it's another name. So let's print the mail and then assert false so we can see it. And run that. Oh, come on. It doesn't print the attributes. It's not a dictionary, so it's an object. So we need to do this. What's on there? So subject is there. Good. So we should be able to assert that the mail subject is equal to, right now I'll just say some junk answer. And this will be false. So we can assert and say, nope, that's not it. All right, so over here, I want, this test is not going to feel great in that I'm going to be sort of repeating logic that is in the code in the test. Okay. So we can do this one of two ways. I could make this test be like a hard-coded string that the subject is going to be, maybe I should do this. I'll think through this. We could go straight to the conclusion of like taking what's in here and putting it here like this. It's going to make the test pass, but it's only going to make the test pass today, right? So we can use a library to, there are multiple ways to handle this, because we need this to pass every day. Like, I don't want to have to come back here and update this because I picked one day and it has changed. So the most work way to do this would be in here in the test, import time zone, put a local variable called today, create that, get a format string here, and essentially replicate the logic that's going to exist over here. That's one way to do that test. Another way to do this test is to use mock and mock out local date, okay, so that what it returns will be July 19th, 2023. We can have it always do that. That's another way to do this. A third way to do this is have a date time specific testing library. And I think I want to go that route because that's going to be useful for us in the future. And essentially the idea is freezing time so that I can leave this kind of consistent output here and know that it's going to behave the same way. And the freezing time approach kind of is like doing the mocking under the covers, but it's doing it at a lower level layer than timezone.localDate. It's like at Python's point of view of what time is it right now. So I think that's the smarter approach. There are a couple of libraries to do this, but I want to use the one that Adam Johnson is the author of. I'm drawing a blank on it. I think it's called Freeze Time. Adam Johnson Freeze Time Machine. Here we go. And you'll see why. So Adam Johnson, if you don't know, is on, I want to say he's on the Django technical board. So he's like super experienced with Django. He's a very sharp guy, and he does a lot of great open source work. Adam's awesome. And he wrote this library as a replacement for the time mocking library. So the one that people would reach for by default is one called FreezeGun. And you can see it mocks time by replacing every import of the date and time function. And Adam did the research and found this can get slow. The more times you have date appearing in your code, every single one of those has to be mocked by FreezeGun in order for it to run well. So it has a, might even be a super linear execution time. So it's fine at first, but over time it becomes a problem. So he wrote an alternate one called Time Machine that does the same kind of thing as FreezeGun, but uses a slightly different library. So I think we want to use Time Machine is the long and short of it. And we can see he's got some stuff here that shows the speed differences. You can see Time Machine with, well, hold on. It's got, yeah, his version took 16 microseconds versus 6.3 milliseconds. Not a lot of difference there, but again, over time that begins to add up, and I think he like illustrates that maybe later on. But it's been around for a while. This is not a new post. It's been around since 2021. So at this point, I think it's pretty solid. So let's go get it. And I think he shows us how to use it too. So we'll do time machine, travel, and I gotta go read up on it because I haven't actually used it before. I have used FreezeCon in the past. Can use it, take a date, cool. Mocks that stuff, great. You can use it with a start and stop, or you can use it as a decorator. That's the version we want. So I want to do something like this. I'm wondering if I can just give it a date version without all of the time string stuff. Maybe it will. That would be the best case. Ideally, I'd like to say timemachine.travel and then a string of 2023-07-19. That would make this test work, and so on. So let's go. We've got this. Let's go save it, and then let's go wrong project again. Sorry. Let's go to the requirements, the development requirements, which is where we keep all of our test stuff. And I want to install Time Machine. And the version is 2.11.0. Time Machine 2.11.0. All right, let's go over here. I don't remember which version of pip install we needed, so let's search the history for pip install. Whoops, gotta wrap that in quotes. Yeah, because we had to change because I started using GraphIs and like that needs to be able to find the headers. So we need to do, I might have even put that in the README. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Oops. So we need to run 1715. Really? Oh, okay. Didn't source that. All right, so now we've got Time Machine. Great. Let's go to our tests. Let's go import Time Machine. And then now the effect should be, we can test this in multiple ways. First thing I want to do is test that it hasn't changed. Like Time Machine, we put the date of today, it still should be the same, right? So Time Machine travel, and we'll say I'm gonna assume that you can put in just a date version and that the parsing will do the rest. Maybe he has accounted for that, in which case kudos to Adam. All right, so boo. All right, LSP restart. Come on, here we go. And the test still passes, cool. Now, let's see if time travel is working. Let's see if it's actually replaced stuff. So let's change it to 18, and it should fail. It didn't. That's not good. That's really not good. Why didn't you fail, code? Oh, sad. Okay. So maybe it doesn't actually support that and is silently failing. How do we put in? We can put in a date. Well, let's import date time. Import date time. And then change this to date time, date, and then I think it takes, what does it take as a constructor? Year, month, day, right? 2023. I don't want octal by accident, so 7 and then 19. Yeah, subject line is being tested. It's right here, John. So like, we should be able to futz with this and say take out the day and Wednesday. You can see it's complaining about the A being missing. So it's definitely testing that. Good question though. So now that we put in a date object, is it going to work? If not, I have concerns. Oh, come on. What's going on? Right. Okay. Definitely have it on the 18th there. The run PyTest, that should not be passing. Should not be passing. Yes, it should. I'm being so dumb. I think I see what you mean by the question now, John. Or perhaps. Here's what I'm getting wrong. Time machine, good question. I don't actually know the implementation. I think he wrote it as a C library. I think he said he wrote it as a C library. It mocks the date and time functions at the C layer. There you go. So it changing their pointers once runs in constant time, no matter how large your project is. It's really slick from that regard. But you know, I'm being a doofus. I realize what's going on. What's going on is the thing that I should have read in this code here. Let's bring them up side by side. Whoops. The me being a doofus part is I didn't actually incorporate the day yet. So of course it's not going to match because this is a hard-coded string. Oops. So here I am, I'm blaming Adam for my own incompetence. Sorry, Adam. Okay, so we need to replace this with the actual appropriate date-time string replacement stuff. And to do that, I'm going to reach for, what is it? There's a cool website you can use that uses gives you a quick reference to Python's time replacement stuff. Python print f time. Whoops. No. Is that right? Oh man. There's a whole website devoted just to this, and it's awesome. I can't. Or is it C time? I don't remember what they call it. Oh, bummer. Time formatting reference. There it is. Stir F time. That was my problem. Yeah, that's exactly what I mean, Michael. These kind of things. I always forget the specifics. So what's the replacement codes that we want to use is what I was looking for. So we want to use I want to spell out the full day. So we want to use %A. And this is all going to be in English, so it should always be dates that are parsable receiving this again. So let's change this to, let's make it a format string. And we'll do today. And then we should be able to do %A, I think. The way to combine formatting. All right, it's working. And here's the proof that Time Machine's working, because I have it set for the 18th, so it's telling me Tuesday. All right, in fact, I want to check, rather than doing date, I want to go back to the string version of this, because it was way easier than importing the datetime module. So let's try that out. So change this stuff to be 2023-07-19. Oops, if I can get an actual valid string. Awesome. All right, so we can ditch that. We don't need that. This feels really nice to me. Good job, Adam. Okay, so over here we can do. We now need the short month name, which is this. So %b, lowercase b. We'll say today %b. We'll leave the period because that's not included with that. Still passes. And then what's date's just D, right? Date. Oh, boo. Yeah, okay. I think we're on a platform where we can use -D. Gosh, this is why I use this website. So we can go change that to today, and then %-D. Oh, and you know, let's test this out. Let's see how this works. I want to see how this works. So that's just a pass. Good, good, good. Let's take our time machine to a date where the thing I want to check out is like, is it actually going to come out as a 9 instead of an 09? So let's change this to the 9th instead of 19th. It's got July 9. Cool. And then if we took out the dash, would it be July 09? Yep. Okay, great. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So there's our format that we're going to use. Hopefully that was pretty clear of what happened there. Then it's time to craft our messages. And here is where it's going to require a little bit of explanation. We have message and HTML message. And I think I talked a little bit about this last time, but email can send messages of multiple content types. I want to say the default is actually a text email that maybe your editor, or not your editor, sorry, your email client will read and show you as kind of in a rich text way, but may come in as just a very, very plain text email. But you can also send email as a multi-part email, and you can send multiple different content types. You can send a simple text version, and you can send a more complex HTML version for email clients that support it. In either case, I want the emails from the service to feel nice and simple, but I don't want the formatting to look bad, if that makes sense. So the text version is going to be pretty simplistic, but for the HTML version that we have to create, I will use some paragraph tags and stuff, and maybe a little bit of styling to like clean it up a little bit. I don't know. We'll see. Or maybe I'll use a horizontal line instead of some other separator. So like, because part of the prompt is going to be record your thoughts, or here was your previous entry, and I want to be able to have some kind of separation perhaps between them. So let's go back to our GitHub issue. And so we're done with this. We now need to set up the template stuff. So in fact, I want to commit this change. So it kind of feels done for now. I gotta stop going that direction. In fact, no, I'm going to leave that up in case we have to reference the homeschool app. But so we have a subject line being created using the local. That was a lot of work and discussion just for a subject line, wasn't it? But this is really important. We got to get this right. And we are testing the subject line. We're now using Time Machine. So add subject line to prompt email. This is for number 4. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next bit. Templates. So how much have we set up templates so far? We set up a little bit. We already talked about the root templates directory, how those things are stored. So now we just need to have our actual templates put somewhere. We have put this stuff into the entries app. So let's go make a template section for that. And I don't want to store all of my templates in the entries app. I want to keep it with the global, the root templates directory, just because that's how I prefer to structure mine. I like to have all of my templates in a single place. So now we're up at the top and we can go into templates. And so we've already got account and core, but I'm going to make a new directory for entries. And in here, I'll create another directory which I'll call email. There's no reason for this structure necessarily. It's just logically consistent for me. And so we need 2 different templates to work from. We need a text version, and we need an HTML version. Let's start with the text version. And we'll say file name. I'm going to call this is the prompt email. I'm going to call it prompt. I'll say it's text. It's a template type. So that is what we want there. And then we start. Now we need to switch back into copywriting mode for a little bit. And thinking in text is actually useful for this. We don't have to think about our formatting yet, and so on. And we had some thoughts. So I'm going to look at one of mine from this other service that I'm using and see what it says. There's some details about it. So it's kind of resurfacing the same question that was asked in the subject line. And then it gives an instruction saying reply, in effect. And then it says, essentially, here is a previous message. So that's what we need. All right, so there's a couple, all of those elements I think I want to exist. So it makes sense to keep them. And then there's an edge case we have to consider. The edge case is if you've never submitted before, then there's not going to be any entries to draw from. Because remember, the prompt is like saying respond, but here, look, here's how it was going before. So I think in that case, we can either say we need some kind of empty message when there is no data, and I guess is what I'm getting at. So we'll get to that in a little bit. But that's something to think through about this. We might even want to test it. So test no available entries. There's actually some other core elements that are going to come out of this process. We'll say the string, the message contains a friendly indicator that a previous entry will appear. That's very wordy. How about the message indicates that a previous entry will appear once it exists. That's really what we're after. So that'll be a test for later. And we need to make an entry that we can use for the purpose of this test, actually. So I need to make one. We have an entry factory, I think, right? Yeah, we have an entry factory. Entry is just the name, the journal entry, as a reminder, if you've not been doing this before. So we want a user. We want to create an entry for that user. So we'll say entry factory. And one of the foreign keys on the entry factory is the user. So let's attach it. Now we're saying this user has this entry. And we need to import this. So from journal entries tests factories import entry factory. And I want to assert that, what do I want to assert? That the body is in the text message. Yeah. I don't really care where or how necessarily, but let's make sure it's included. So we expect that the entry body is in mail. Just where we have to look up. It's going to be a multi-part. So where is the message stored? I'm going to, for the moment, to get this to fail, let's say mail subject, and then print again the attributes of the mail, because I don't remember what they all are. We might have to look it up. All right, we've got alternatives. Mail has a body. What? It has a message too. Encoding? What do I see? I think the encoding is going to be like, that's a good question. What is the encoding? Print, mail, encode. I think it's just going to be like UTF-8 kind of thing. I don't think that's going to. So let's also print mail message, and let's print mail body. Because the HTML one might be like considered an attachment. Check that out. So email message, bound message, email message. Oh, that's a method. Okay. There's replace this message. That's the body. But where's the HTML body? How do we get to that? Email multi. This might be in the attach somewhere, or alternatives. And you would think that this stuff would be easier to find. Message. Let's call message, see what it says. Because that was a method. Oh, okay. So the message is the full, the actual on the wire bytes that are sent out. It's not quite what we want. It's close, but not quite. So how do we get to, this is the line I want to get to right here. This replace this HTML message. Okay. What is, all right, for the time being, we can say you can show up in the message. That's like the text one. Comment these out. And then, whoops. Argument of type method is not iterable. Ah, okay. All right, so the body of our made up entry is not in there. Yes, Nigel, I actually used ChatGPT earlier in this session to come up with some subject lines, or at least help out. I don't think that programmers become more technicians. I think it's a useful tool, but in fact, I've seen plenty of cases where it's just so wrong. Like, I was asking ChatGPT a week or two ago about doing some regular expressions, and the regular expressions were just, they didn't actually do what ChatGPT claimed that they did. So it was like a starting point, and then I had to go do the research on my own. And I fully confess that maybe that's just where they are today, and that a year from now, at the rate things are accelerating, is like maybe they'll be accurate 99% of the time or 99.99% of the time, but they're not there today. So I like to use them as a rough guide and then say the rest of it I'm going to be doing myself. Hopefully that answered your question. Okay, so we need to come over here and we need to put in the message and the core elements. So I can repeat if we follow the formula of that other service, we could say repeat the question that's in the title. Oh, no problem. Happy to reply. If you have any other questions, let me know. So how are you? And then they kind of like, they said simply. I don't like putting kind of value judgments on, the way people perceive things. So I want to give a very clear instruction. Say, and then we might even be able to put it in one line if it's that simple. That way we can keep it condensed. Reply to this message. Reply to this prompt. Let's let them know it's prompt. To update your journal. Sure. How does that work? You'll like that? Let me know what you think. So that's kind of that. And then we can say, we're going to need to say if, so remember, we're in Django template land now. So we should be able to write a template. So if entry, then end if we don't have an entry. So we're going to need to handle the else case later. I said that was a different test. That's where we can put something nice there. But if we have an entry, we need to prompt them in a friendly way that says, here's what you wrote previously. And this is a departure from this other app. One of the things, it was like, the project is actually open source. I'll eventually name the project. I'm not trying to like dump on them, so I don't want to throw any shade, which is why I don't name the service out directly. But one of the things that I haven't liked about the thing is that in the body of this email, when it tells you, here's your previous entry, it just lists the date. And I have found that after doing this for many years, you kind of want to know more than the date. You want to know, it doesn't just list the date, sorry. It lists the date and the body you wrote, the actual thing that you wrote in the entry. But it doesn't list the day. This is a quality of life improvement that I reported to this service, and they never corrected it. But I think I mentioned early in the stream that my week has a certain rhythm to it. And that, what I experience on a Wednesday is pretty different from what I experience even on a Thursday or on a Saturday. They're all different kinds of days. And if I'm looking at an old entry, just like when I want to have the prompt tell me what frame of mind or what was my day like if I'm considering a very recent day, I also want to know, was it a Saturday when I wrote this previous entry? Because that might mean, hey, it was the weekend. I was doing stuff with my wife and my children, and like in a much more substantial way than a typical workday. So that's very important that we include the spell out, just like we did in the subject of it's Wednesday. I want to include that here too. So I want to say, let's do this. We can have, how can we say this? So this is where we might be able to tie into the journey inbox idea. So on your journey, on, and then we can say entry. Ooh, how do we get, okay, here's where we need to switch into a different mode for formatting. Let's bring up some template tags. Now we're getting a little bit more Django stuff, which is good. Django template tags. So Python has its own set of formatting stuff when you're doing an F string, but those aren't all available when you're doing it inside of a Django template. They're a different set of formatting strings, which is why I always struggle to remember them. I spend most of my time doing Django templates and stuff, and they're slightly different. So there's that. So there should be one of these filters is date right here. And date is the thing that you use to change, put out a value like we were saying previously. So here, I think they give it some examples. Here you go. For example, date, da 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 da, and a filter. So we want to say on your journey, on, entry, when. So that's the date time object that we have, or the date object, I guess. And then we use the pipe filter to say that this is a Django, or that we're going to use a Django filter and put date. And then you invoke it with a colon string. That's the kind of the weird part here. So we're going to have the string. I'm going to fill that in a second. You wrote, and then we want entry body. Okay. So I think this will be enough to make the test pass because we're just putting the entry body right in there. But it's not. Womp womp. Well, that looks weird. Why is it saying we're complaining about? What if I say they're equal instead of in? Will it give me a better comparison? Hard to see with that. Why is it not matching up? The bound method, but I called it, right? Message. Assert that the body is equal to the message, but it's been invoked. So, assertion. Many happen choice, blah, 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 blah. Oh. What? Yeah, it contains, John, your question there is like, the in should be doing that. Like if this is true, if the body is being incorporated in here, just by doing an in, that should be checking that the characters from here are inside of, oh, I'm being so dumb. We haven't connected. This is the second time I've done this, y'all. What's going on with me tonight? We're not calling anything yet, so it shouldn't come as any shock that the entry's not appearing. Like skipping way ahead, thinking I've already done the implementation, but I haven't. Sorry, but I still understand. So what I would have expected then is that replace this message would have been the result of this thing. So let's see. I want to see. So let's put an assert false here so it doesn't fail at that part. And then let's see, what is the message here? Oh, it's that whole thing. Oh, maybe it was body. That was just the replace this message thing. Ah. Okay. I was doing it on the wrong one. And so calling message and printing was doing the repr. Okay. I think that's what was happening. So really what we would need here is body. And now we should see a better failure. Okay. Much better. And we need to hook this up so we start seeing this stuff. So I've spent a bunch of the time on the template, but we haven't actually hooked anything up. We also need to hook up, well, the entry factory actually. Entry factory is pulling from today. Oh, that's going to be bad. Look, because we're doing... No, it's not going to be bad. The time travel aspect should work inside of the body of this method too. So when entry factory calls today, it will pull July 19th always, even though today happens to be July 19th. So it'll make an entry for July 19th and associate it with that user. So we should get the right user. Because what we're going to do is... No. Well, this will happen to work because there will only be one entry. Sorry, y'all. I'm kind of jumping all over the place tonight. There's thoughts bouncing around in here. Promise it'll make sense. So here, the entry that appears, we want it to be random. The whole point of this is to get a little bit of like random joy about, or maybe not joy, but a reminder about some point in your life. Maybe you've had some really down periods. Like I have journal entries about lost relatives where they passed away from old age and stuff. And so that there's a somber reminders of life in my journal. So, there's still some joy in like reflecting on, I love those people and there's that, but there's still, it's sad in some ways. But that's not the point. The point was there's a randomness element. We want to pick a random entry here. So let's record that. We need to do get random entry. And I'm honestly not sure of the best way I want to do that. We're going to figure that out together. For the moment, I can pull just the first entry to make the test work, and then we can go back and backfill to a random entry. So we'll say entry equal entry dot objects dot filter user equal user. We'll do last. Okay, and then we're going to use that in a minute. So we need to use this template. We haven't hooked up the template at all, and then we need to replace this string, which says replace this message, with the actual response from the template rendering. So there are methods we can use. Let's bring up another tab. Django render template, or render to string is the one we want to use, I think. So there's some shortcuts and there are different things. Render to string. Where is this? I don't remember where it was. Oh, I think if I hover over it, it tells you, or to get the anchor. Django template loader, render to string. There it is. Here's an example. So a lot of the time when you're using Django, you're not rendering email. That's not necessarily a common thing to do. Most of the time, since being Django is a server-side render template. If you're going to render a template, you are going to be in the context of an HTTP request and response, right? And in that case, you're going to want to use the render shortcut, which is under Django shortcuts render. And that shortcut expects a request object, and it pulls the context out of the request in order to know what to render. Here, we're taking a different approach, where our rendering is not trying to provide an HTTP response, it's trying to provide the body of this HTML prompt, which again is acting kind of as our user interface. So what we really want to do is use render to string. We're going to pass in our template name of the text version, and then we're going to pass in a context dictionary, and then we're going to get the rendered output, which will be a string. String is what we'll put in that message field. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Let's go do it. So up here, we want to go from, what would I say it was? From template loader, Django template loader. So from Django template loader, import render to string. And this is where, like I said, where it's going to get a little messy. We're going to have a bunch of different kind of concepts that are kind of blending in together. Why does the job need to know where the template is? Like, that doesn't feel necessarily right. So we might wrap this kind of building of the HTML up later, but I'm okay putting it in here for now. So we want to get the text message. So I'll call it, for the moment, I'll just actually use that. We'll have text message, we'll have HTML message is ultimately what we're going to do. And we'll say render to string. We're going to give the template name, which is at that entries path. So entries, email, then I think I called it prompt txt, right? Yep, prompt txt. And for the moment, I'm going to pass it an empty context. Okay. And then we want to replace this with our text message. Like so. All right, so now this failure over here should change. It should say like, how are you? Reply to this prompt, but it's still not going to match, right? Oops, I didn't import entry. My bad. From, I guess we're already in the entry thing. So we're in jobs. So let's go up to from dot models import entry. Okay. Let's run our test. Users not defined. What? Did I mess up the entry model? Baloney, it is absolutely defined. It's right there, foreign key. Oh. That. Okay. Yeah. My bad. Yes. Okay, being dumb, putting this at the wrong level. We're down here inside of this account. So it's really the account user. I am not doing a great job in the coding yet tonight, y'all. Hopefully you're getting the ideas across, even though I'm not excelling at this. Okay. All right, we're close. You can see we're now getting our rendered version. How are you? Reply to this prompt. So getting there. Great. So we've got a little bit more work to do here. Let's come down here, and now we want to say, let's put the context in there by putting it into the context dictionary. So anything else going to go in the context? Probably not. But at the same time, I don't want this line to be super long. So let's go ahead and give it a local variable. Fine. And we'll say entry and entry. Then come down here and change this to context. Context is a dictionary of items that the template then has access to. So without the context, it doesn't know where entry is, so it doesn't do anything with it. But once the entry is passed in the context, we give it a name, and so that the template, when it's rendering, has actual access to this model instance. So if I did this right, what is it complaining about? Oh, my editor doesn't understand Django. Forget you guys. I'm sure I could provide some type hints there, but I don't want to. But we've got to test it passing now, because we're putting the body into the email. Okay, let's see how our date format. Let's just see how it looks just in general. So assert false. Let's print that mail body again. And we see, oh wow, interesting. Must be using a default template format. So it's got July 19th, 2023. Cool, but not what we want. So let's go back to our template filter tags and then put in the right style that we're looking for. And as I said, I want to include the day of the week. Is a very important element of this to improve the experience. So that's going to be the first. So we're going to say, on your journey on Wednesday, lowercase l, and then comma. Then we'll use the same, let's be consistent with the month style naming. So we can do month. I don't want to use Associated Press style. No thanks. Let's do capital M, followed by a period. M, period. So the way this works is like the letters get replaced with their things, but anything that's not recognized by this pattern stuff will just be output as is, which is why we can kind of include the comma space and the dot space, all that stuff. So we've got month, and then we need date. We want it as the without the leading zeros, so with J. You can see it's like totally different from the format string version of this. It's wacky. And then we want to end it with the year, which will probably be capital Y, which we didn't have before, I guess, because we opted not to include the year. But on the flip side of this process, like the year matters because you've been using this journal service like I have for 7 years. Like, you can't just include the month and date. Like, it could be 6 years ago, 7 years ago. Important. So capital Y. All right. Let's see how that feels. So on your journey on Wednesday, July 19th, 2023, you wrote blah, 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 blah. Cool. Looking pretty good. I don't like there's an extra space here, so we might trim that by getting rid of that, because this is going to be here no matter what. This is the things you got to pay attention with, especially with text emails, because these will show up literally. So if you're not careful with your template formatting, you can either use the spaceless template tag, like if you want to really be crazy about your spacing, but just be aware that what you thought was just a blank line, the template tag, the if block, is another line that you have to consider. And I guess we could the other way we could have gotten around that is by doing something like this, where you leave the line, but then you do this. That would have the same effect, but it sure looks pretty nasty to me. So I'd rather do it this way, where it gets a little tighter vertically, but I'm not having to read a really complicated line across. Personal preference, though. Okay, so we've got this stuff. Wrote all that. Anything else I'll need to do on this? Oh, yeah. There's one more thing. Okay. There's a couple of extra things in here that are nice. And as you can see, a human touch. So there's another Django app that we can add. Django comes with a couple of other template tag libraries that you have to enable explicitly in installed apps. So one of them is contrib humanize. Let's go read about it. So this is going to be, I think there's one in here. If it's not in here, then I don't want to use this, but I think it's natural day, I think is what we want. So I want to see what happens when we set this to a long time ago. Let's check it out. Because it's kind of nice to know relatively, like, how long ago was this without having to do the math in your head. If we come here and we say, we'll put it right here put it in parentheses. And what I want to say is this, entry when, and then we want to pass it this natural day template tag filter. That's what all these are. We have to load humanize. So this is actually good. I don't know that in a bunch of my other streams that I've really gotten much into like custom filters and stuff. So this is kind of a good opportunity to see this stuff. So we want natural day, right? That was what it was called. Yep. We'll do that like that. We end it. So that's what's going to go in parentheses here. Okay. And then, but if I call this, it's going to complain. It doesn't know what this filter is. So we have to do a little bit of work. We have to go to our settings, and in installed apps, we need to add a new app. Yeah, humanize is pretty cool. It's a nice one to have in there. Agree with you, John. So we want to go Django contrib humanize. But that's bringing in the installed app that makes it available, but there's another step. If you want to use custom template tags, you have to load them explicitly. This is where it might be weird. We might actually have to do something crazy like do that where I was talking about how you don't want to do them on the same line thing. We might have to do it like this where load humanize and then immediately have how are you following it. Okay, so let's see how that does. It's got today. You can see it there. Cool. For these things, these will be past entries, so we will only ever see this for today. But yeah, get that. Let's do this. We want to see this stuff no matter what. So let's put this up here. Well, let's use our time machine. Oh, it's so cool. Good name. Good naming. And let's change it to 10 days ago. See what it does. It's going to fail for a different reason, but we still see. Whoops. Today. Oh, that's not right. Why is it saying today? It's almost like the entry factory did not factor in the time machine stuff. Boo. What does it think today is? Print entry when? Okay. It thinks it's the 9th. Why does it keep saying today? Does it not know how to go back in time? It said yesterday in the example. Like, the 9th is not today, right? For dates that are the current day or within 1 day. Otherwise, format the date. Oh, maybe it doesn't do. I would at least have expected it to do yesterday. Any other day formatting is formatted according to given argument or the date format setting. Oh, boo. Maybe that's not what I want. Let's see. I know Ruby and Rails have this because the service I'm using is written in Ruby and they have something similar. Let's see. Django, friendly, humanize, past dates. Okay, that would indicate that natural time. Oh, maybe natural time is what I want. If I use natural day. What's the difference? Oh, yeah, totally what I wanted. I just need to read. Falling back to time since. Oh, but there is this thing. Date. Well, that just didn't work. So it doesn't work on a date. Well, boo. But it doesn't seem to work on the day either, right? Like, it's definitely not today. What's going on? I printed when. Right here. It's the 9th. Got entry.when over here. Oh, man. Okay. Format a date. What if we just try time since? What is that going to look like? Time since seems to be a built-in one. Zero minutes. Something's not working correctly here. I'm wondering if Time Machine is culprit. It's like that should work. Okay, I think I'm going to give up on this part for now. So in theory, we know how to do it, but it doesn't want to play it nicely at the moment. I'm not going to fret about it. Maybe it's an improvement that I can add in later, but it doesn't have to be there on day one. Kind of disappointing. Like, I don't know why that wasn't, like, it definitely should show up that way. All right. So let's return this to the 19th. You think the decorator mocks all time-related methods within the entire context? Yeah, I would think so too, Daniel. Like that, if the decorator affects everything in here, right? Then everything inside of this should be, from the point of view of this code that executes, the 9th when I had it set to the 9th. Right now it's back to the 19th, but let's just, for the sake of having a clear discussion, it's the 9th, right? So we call job execute. Then, or actually even before then, we create an entry, right? And so the factory says, create it for today, which we saw when I printed this. It says it was for the 9th. Okay, so far so good. It's the only entry related to this user. Okay, we get into execute. We're now in execute. We select all the accounts. At this point, there's only one that's associated with this user. It's a for loop over the one account. This thing should be the local date, which we saw. It was erroring on the 9th appropriately. But also this thing, the when, because we're picking the last one and there's only one, should also be the 9th. So that means we get in here and then we see entry.when. And we saw correctly that it was Wednesday, July, or whatever it was. I guess it was different when it was the 9th. I think we saw Sunday, July 9th, 2023. So that would indicate that the thing in the template is the correct entry with the correct when. And then we did the time since thing, and it said 0 minutes. And we did, I think I might know. I think I know. What? Software update? Get out of here. I don't even know it's updating. Okay, this is why it's not working. So this feature may be working just fine, but time freezing is broken in the sense of I told it to freeze time. And I said, today, this is so obvious now to me. Sorry. I told it to freeze it for the 9th. Okay, so what is the delta between time since when the previous date is the 9th and today is the 9th? Well, of course it's 0. So of course it made sense that the answer was today. It will always be today because the time will be frozen. So if we're making an entry for the same day as that, okay, it was right. I was wrong. I'm getting a lot of stuff wrong tonight. I'm getting a little annoyed with myself. So natural day is correct. I'm also wrong to be blaming other people. I feel really bad about that. Django, contrib, humanize. Humanize. Okay. Yeah, I think you're right, Daniel. It might work as expected if I only put the time stuff around the execute part of this. If I allowed it to be, if I allowed the other stuff to be what is the time right now, then yes, it would show an actual time delta. The problem is, from a testing point of view, it's not deterministic. I would not want to be checking against, well, it was yesterday, the report's back yesterday or 2 days ago. That's not not right, or it's not something that I want to be updating. So if it says today, it's correct, and I think I'll leave it at that and trust that it's actually doing the thing it's supposed to be doing. My fault. I'm being dumb and a lot more self-deprecating tonight than usual. I'm usually not the self-deprecating, but I'm making boneheaded mistakes. Okay. So now we have this nicer message or it feels nicer to me. So it's like on your journey here, and this could say like 3 years ago, you wrote, and then blah blah blah, which is that's where I want it to be. Let's go back and fix the test to be actually for the 19th, so it gets the subject right. And then I don't want to assert every aspect of the body of this. I'm not interested in that. Like, it'll be good enough that I can through inspection see some of these things are correct. Like, I will rarely be fiddling with these things, if ever. And if I am, I'm going to be like actively checking them because I want to see what the output format looks like. So I don't need to unit test every single little aspect of the template. I want to get it mostly right. Thanks for the encouragement, John. Yeah, and definitely to err is human, and I am certainly one of those. Okay, so we're good here. We have now looked at the body. We've got this. This should be the right test at this point. It is. Everything's passing. We still need to find where our HTML message is going to be stored, and then we can assert on the from field. That one should be the easiest part of this later. Although I don't have the from field, that might be a setting that we need to store that doesn't exist yet. We might, the rate where I'm going this evening, we might just be punting on that part because and coming back to the send grid portion later. So let's, yeah, in fact, I'm going to declare that. So where I want to end this evening is let's get the HTML version written, which we're going to draw extremely heavily from the text version. Basically just be wrapping this up with HTML tags to the appropriate amount, and then finding where the HTML message is, and then doing the assertion that the content's there. There's a little bit of complexity here in that right now we might need to fiddle with the entry, because I want to be able to do, what do I want to do? Well, no, we can get away with this one with, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. The HTML message, the user is going to be able to put in new lines. They're going to be able to hit enter in the response and store that. So if we have new line characters in the entry, and we actually might want to control what the entry body is, just so we can get something more deterministic than the randomly generated stuff, because I might want to very purposefully synthesize that the text could include new lines and show up that way. In fact, and now that I'm saying it out loud, we absolutely want to do that. So let's do that. Let's say body equal body, and we'll say this is the entry. It has new lines. That's again, the reason I'm getting picky about this is because in HTML we need to be able to convert those new lines into break characters, and there's a template tag that we want to use that we're going to insert on. And so I want to control this very tightly so that when I can check the HTML message later, I can look specifically for something like paragraph, this is the entry, break, it has new lines, something like that. So that's important to get that way and get that controlled. All right, let's go find this, replace this HTML message in the message. And how should we do that? I think I'm tired of printing out this stuff. I think we need to go into a little bit more of an exploratory mode at the actual debug step here. So let's drop a debugger here and try running it. And now we're here. So previously I was just printing stuff, and that was getting frustrating. Let's make sure we look at the attributes again as a reminder. So we've got all these things available to us. So let's see what is What is mail alternatives? Is that where it's stored? I don't know. Is that a list? Hey, look at that. Striking gold on the first one. So it's a list that has the HTML type attached. Okay. So I'm going to take advantage of that. So I'm going to look for list entry 0 and then the first entry in that and assume that it's always going to be in this structure. So that should be that. So now we can say HTML message is equal to, what did I just say? Mail alternatives 0, the first one. And then within that tuple, it was the first part of it. The other side was the content type. And then we want to assert that, I think I want to do it this way. Let's assert, we're not going to assert that they're exactly, well, the difference here is that I was asserting that the entry body was just in it. And I can do that because this is a raw text translation because it was a text one. But as I said, this is going to have some conversion to it. So there's not quite as simple. So I want to assert my direct expectation. I want to see this is the entry dot. I'm going to expect to see break in there as replacements for the new line characters. It has new lines. And that's going to be equal to, well, let's reorder that. So the HTML message, sorry, in is the HTML message, because the HTML message is going to have more than just this, but it wants to see, I want to assert that at least the body is in there and that at least it has converted those new lines into break characters. Okay, and I think we can get rid of those to-dos. We can get rid of the breakpoint. I think we can even, well, yeah, we can get rid of the print. Well, it's convenient for quickly looping. Okay. So now what? This is where it starts to get easier, I think. We have this whole body here. We'll change this to HTML. We'll change TXT to HTML. And then we'll replace this HTML message with HTML message. Okay. That gets all of that. And then that's going to fail because the template doesn't exist. So totally expected, template does not exist. That's the exception. So let's take this content as a raw starting place and let's copy it into prompt HTML. Okay. I'm going to go look at Homeschool a little bit for a moment. If you haven't joined my stream before, Homeschool is my other app that I've used on stream for plenty of stuff. I want to find an email. So look at the difference here. So we've got this send referral email. So here's a text example that you can see. And then you can see what's the minimal amount of stuff that I've done on the HTML side. So in fact, let's just copy this as a start and from that point and steal it. And we'll open that there and we'll clean some up in a second here. So we're going to essentially replace all of these just raw text lines with paragraph tags. This won't be a lot and won't actually even be that much. We want to move the load humanize back to the top. So we can see that we're going to be using doc type tags there. And then we'll have a paragraph tag. So we'll take all of that content here. We'll move it into a paragraph tag. And then we need a second paragraph tag. but we only need it if there's an entry. So let's move this whole thing up here. Now we can, oh, yuck. That did not tab the way I thought it would. Okay. So the spacing matters less because we're in HTML now. And we can now take this stuff and, whoops, I went too far. So if there's an entry, then we want to, wrap that in a paragraph tag. Close the paragraph tag. Guess so. Okay. My editor is trying to detect my indentation stuff, but it does that really poorly on new files. So I'm going to go up for a second and then come back in. Then now you can see it's like recognize, oh, actually you're a template and I'm getting your indents right. So it fixed all that stuff. That's why I went up and down. So we can get rid of this, we can get rid of this. Got a paragraph tag. We want to put a paragraph, I want to indent that so that we can see it pretty clearly that it's part of the if block. And then let's wrap this in a paragraph tag here. Let's run the test. It's going to fail. So you can see what's happening. We're expecting the break to be in there, but then here's the actual content, and it's just dumping out the raw stuff with the new line characters. And a browser, an email client that supports HTML is not going to translate those new line characters into breaks. So we need to do something about that. So there's a template tag that we can use that is called break, line breaks. So you can see, replace line breaks in plain text with appropriate HTML. A single new line becomes a break tag, and a new line followed by a blank line becomes a closing paragraph tag. Oh, that's interesting. So maybe we want this one instead, line breaks BR. Converts all new lines in a piece of plain text to HTML line breaks. Because I don't know, because if I do this one, a new line followed by a blank line, closing paragraph tag, I'm not going to necessarily be creating the opening paragraph tag for this. So that might just end up coming out poorly. Where this is going to come, the rubber is going to meet the road is when I have a real test set up and can put in a real entry, and we're going to do some visual inspection of, does the resulting email prompt look like what I expect it to look like? And we can see that later, but just not right now. So I'm going to assume for the moment that we want to use line breaks BR. That will get us close enough. And if we're wrong, if I'm wrong later, we can correct that. So line breaks BR is a filter. I think the test should pass now. Hey, cool. So let's let it fail though. And let's see the body. No, let's see the HTML message, which is not on the mail. Here we go. We have, this is the entry, break. It has new lines. What happens if we switch it to just line breaks? What's that going to look like? Will I be right? Oh, interesting. This is the entry. Wrapped it in paragraph tags. Maybe the better result would be to take this off like that, and let it make its own paragraph tags. I think that's better. Still going to test it. And now my assertion is definitely wrong, but feels better. So let's comment this out, comment that out, and they're going to fail. You can see what it's done is it closed it. It put a couple of new line characters in there, which helps us from a source formatting perspective, and then it starts a new paragraph tag. I'm okay with that. So let's represent that just very directly. Close the tag. It's also, I suppose, we could really get it accurate. Open and close, it's going to have a new line and a new line. It's going to open another one, and this will have a closing one. That feels like the right way to show this. Awesome. Okay. I think we can delete, we can really clean up. This test was getting quite messy. So we have now done the subject, we've done the text body. I don't really like that it's just called body. It'd be nice if there's a way to highlight that it's text. Can we? Let's check for other, maybe body is just one way that it stores the message, but let's see if there's other things that store the plain attribute. Before we wrap up. So male body is the text version. What else might have it? Connection, message. There may not be another thing. I may just have to deal with it. Alternative subtype. Male. I don't know why that would be in there. Okay. Attach. There's no attachments, I don't think. Bound method. Male. Attach. Oh, okay. That's if you. That's an operation you want to do on it. I get it. Attach a file. The attachments is like what you put on there. No BC, BCC. Content. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. I think we're just gonna have to live with that. So let's do this. Later on, I'm gonna be like, what the heck? So let's put a little comment after this that says, test the text email. Otherwise, I'm not going to remember. And then we can do, let's put the HTML part close to the actual HTML. Now it's starting to read a little bit more naturally. So there is a mail. Get the mail out of the mailbox. Check the who it's to. Check the subject. Check the body. And then we're going to put the from up here, I guess. Kind of say from, to, then what's the subject, then what's the content. That reads very naturally to me, or how I'd want to read it. Okay. That's a lot of work for what is ultimately going to amount to a handful of lines of code, but it's a pretty critical piece to this whole process. The other bit we need to do, again, is what do you do when there's nothing? Should we just go ahead and do that? Knock it out? Maybe we should. It might be a good way to wrap. Otherwise, I'm going to have this else block here that's going to feel yucky. So let's take the same test and we want pretty much everything about this test. Oh, that's not true. We're going to trim a lot of it. We want to take out the entry. No entries in here. It is going to have a mail. And we do want to check. I don't care about checking the from and to. The first test will take care of that. And I don't care about checking the subject. First test will take care of that. That's not going to change. And then there's no entry, so we need to check for our message. So let's first go to the text message, go to the else. You have no entries yet. As soon as you do, a previous entry will appear in your prompt. Feels okay. Maybe you could use some polishing. No, I think I want a random previous entry. People need to know, like, I mean, we're gonna convey this in the marketing copy of, like, what are you signing up for? That will eventually appear there. But just as a reminder of, once I start with the service, here's your first one. It should make sense that you don't have anything yet, but in case you forgot, or in case you didn't realize what this was about, here's what to do. So that feels pretty good. So let's do, let's just assert very directly here. You have no entries yet. That's what we want to look for. And, whoops, we need to use the mail out box. Mail out box. We don't need to check anything about the user. So far so good. Got through the first one. So let's take this thing. Let's go to the HTML version, pop it in here, and wrap it in a paragraph tag. Really wants to outdent that. So this is basically the same thing, except we're going to go here, and we're going to change all of this to be HTML message. And I guess we can assert that it starts with a paragraph tag, just to show that it's different. Why not? Great. Got 2 tests. All good. We now have a state where you're a brand new user. You have never used the service before, and it's going to give a response. We've got the other one where you've been coming to this thing, and we're going to remind you of a previous entry. We have to do this randomization stuff. That is a core element of this. Did I record that somewhere else? No, I should have recorded it here, though. Michael, good question. No, unfortunately. Is there a way to ensure these messages aren't... And this is like the general problem with email. So I I ran into this week again. I keep referencing the service I've been using. I think the service I've been using might have been taken over by spammers or something, and their reputation got destroyed. Because a bunch of my emails, which again, I've been using the service for like 7 years, and never, ever did it go to spam. And then this past week, it started going to spam. I was saying messages like these have gone to spam. It's like, I didn't send them to spam. So it must be like other people have sent the same things to spam or something like that. I don't really understand. But I'm guessing that their trust and deliverability went way down. And And the action I had to take for my client was to add this vendor and their email address as a contact for my client. So we might have messages like that in like an FAQ. There's a frequently asked questions things that there's a few that I come to mind that are going to be common questions. One is about the spam. Like, what are we going to do about that? How do people ensure that they're going to get it? Two is about privacy. I really want to convey to people, like, I don't want to read your stuff. It's not important to me. I really like your privacy is important. I want to treat it that way. Three is going to be, like, how do I know that my data is not locked into your service? And so there's going to be some messaging around, like, you can export your data at any time. Here's an archive page. Go get it. And like, I might supply a couple different formats of either like a JSON payload or even just a plain text dump of like, here they all are. Because maybe, not everybody's gonna be a technically savvy user that wants to like read it in and parse it into something else. So I can provide JSON for the nerds like myself, and then for the the regular folk who just need to get their entries out, I can provide a raw text dump. Although if they're using their email client, I don't know, do you all delete everything you send? I don't. Gmail never prompts me to do that. So technically have all of my history already just in my sent box through my history with Gmail, but it'd be nice to provide that anyway. So that's how I've been thinking about spam. All right, so we set up the template body of the email. I'm going to add a new item here that says, and I want to do this before we get to the from field. We need to pull a random entry instead. Oh, the instead doesn't matter. Pull a random entry. So I will do a little bit of research on the best way to do that. There's probably ways that are specific to a database, but off the top of my head, I think I would want to take, I have thoughts. It's probably something like get the count of all the entries in the system right now, use a random number on it, and then get the 47th entry. But I can't index all of them necessarily. I don't know. We'll play with it. I think there are probably smarter ways to do it without fetching everything. And I don't know if I used the query set.all operator and pulled them all into memory. That doesn't seem very efficient, but maybe the ORM is smart enough to not actually pull all that data. Maybe it won't do everything. Maybe it'll be like, I noticed you asked for index 47. I'm going to do a lookup based on the ordering that you had, and then pick a very specific thing. Got to check on it. I needed to find ways that are to do that we want to make sure it's efficient, because it's going to happen. This loop will be happening potentially a lot, and I don't want that to take forever. So got to pull a random entry, and we need to set the from email address, which is going to require us to poke around at SendGrid and learn about how do we actually, what email address do we need to supply? Or maybe I punt on that problem and just assume that it's going to be a setting, and we set something dumb for now, and then come back and fill it in with appropriate values later. That's probably actually what we should do. Okay, that's going to wrap it up for me for this evening. Thank you all for joining in. Hopefully you learned something. Thank you for dealing with me as I was fumbling through a bunch of mistakes, but hey, this is programming. We all make mistakes, and sometimes you're knocking it out of the park, and other times you're struggling to get basics right. But we'll continue on this journey, and I will chat with y'all next week. So take care, and I'll see you around.